Welcome back to another solo episode of the Greater WAAAGH. I am your host, Gershwan, and today we're going to be, or no, hold on. This is a video series where we answer the questions left by you, the viewer. If you have a question for us, comment down below. Put question in front of that question because we get to those questions first. And when I say we, it's usually me and the Sound Alchemist. The Sound Alchemist could not be here for this Q&A video, but he should be for the last two. We do 3 of these a week. So ask in the comment section below as if the Sound Alchemist would be here. You guys can theorize as to why the Sound Alchemist is not here, and then comment down below. Put theory in front of your theory. Put theory in front of your theory because we get to those theories first. I know he has like the Mr. Potato Head monster theory, the Tzeentch Beak theory, so there's a lot of theories, and I would love to see what your guys' imagination comes up with. Probably something gay. This question comes from Sauced Up Tony. Do you think that the clone of Fulgrim will ever fight his demon original? That's a good question. I think it's gonna happen as in a narrative setting, so like in a book or a novel. I don't think it's actually ever going to happen on the tabletop. I don't think GW is ever going to come out with a loyalist Fulgrim model for the 41st millennium, because you could buy it for the for 30K. And it looks pretty cool. But yeah, as far as like the tabletop getting a clone Primarch, I don't think that's ever going to happen. For all those that don't know, Trazen the Infinite has a clone of every single Primarch, except maybe the 2 lost Primarchs, I'm not sure. But he has them in his vault. Yeah, he has them in his vault. Sorry, the dogs they made a noise and they distracted me. He has them in his vault, and then I think it's only Fulgrim and another Primarch. Help me out in the comment section below, but they're the only ones that are to full strength. And he's a loyalist, and he knows that Fulgrim, the original Fulgrim, betrayed the Emperor. So the story really like highlights that struggle or that conflict between realizing that he betrayed the Emperor and that he himself feels loyal. It would be cool to see them fight, but I don't think it's going to happen anytime soon. I think GW is going to spend more time and money on trying to develop the return of the next Primarch or the next big phase of the 40K universe. So like the next like Indomitus Crusade or the next Cicatrice Maledictum storyline type of thing, rather than actually bring back a clone. And I think Sanguinius is coming back, so we'll see what happens with that. Next question. This one comes from Brian B. Who would win in a battle between the 4 mortal champions of the Chaos Gods? Typhus, Lucius, Ahriman, or Karn? I know you say, like, you emphasize mortal champions, as in they can die. But they're not going to die because they're named characters. So who would win in a battle? A single battle, not to the death, but just probably like outwitting or outmaneuvering the other. I'll give it to Ahriman. The reason I give it to Ahriman is because Karn is just aggressive. He can be tricked pretty easily. Typhus just wants to infect, so I think his motives are not as strong as Ahriman's, and Ahriman's I feel is like more, he wants to get something done, and he's going to get that done by whatever means. And then Lucius the Eternal I just don't like that character, so he's going to lose. No, but I do think that Ahriman could trick Lucius. I think that is a whole point of Tzeentch. It's even when they think they're winning, they're actually losing because it's the changer of ways, and like he knows the web of paths and all that kind of stuff. But yeah. Next question comes from Trotterton. I want to make a mushroom forest terrain. Is there any planet in the 40K universe that does have this type of biome? Mushrooms, like giant mushrooms, not that I know of, but you can definitely create like agri-worlds, or you could say that it is an agri-world that's being fought over. Agri-worlds are just basically just giant farms. The planet itself either creates a certain crop or they grow a certain livestock. Usually this creature called a grox. It's a mix between... No, it's just a giant reptile. It's just like a giant lizard that's really aggressive, but you can kill it, and the meat is equivalent to like cow meat and stuff like that. So there's that, and then you could just say that these mushrooms actually feed an entire sector. And then you can just go out and create this terrain. There's a lot of ways to do it too, because I've been, like, when I was playing D&D and I was creating terrain for D&D, I wanted to make a mushroom forest. And what I did is I went to Hobby Lobby or Michael's, you can go to either one, or whatever craft store, and they have these like half domes made out of styrofoam, and you can use those for the tops of the mushrooms, and you could actually sand it down a little bit from the top so that it becomes a platform for you to place your miniatures on top of. So like you can have Space Marines or whatever unit fighting on top of a mushroom. The only thing is that you have to sand the edges and sand the top, and then find something like another piece of foam, probably just like pink foam, to be the core center. I will eventually create a terrain video for that, just because I really like the concept, and you could use it not just for 40K, but you could use it for like D&D, you could use it for fantasy, you could use it for a bunch of stuff. So yeah, that's how you could do it in Agri World. But yeah, this next question comes from Simon Teese. What would happen to the Imperium when the Emperor finally physically dies? So the first thing that will happen is that the Astronomicon goes away. The Astronomicon is just basically a beacon for astropaths to navigate through the warp with. If you go into the warp and you don't have the Astronomicon, you don't have that light directing you or telling you how to get to a certain place, then you get lost and you die. And then it goes back to the Age of Strife, when humanity had to maintain they had to stay within their own little area. They couldn't travel through the warp, because if they did, most likely they would just die. So a lot of areas, going back to the whole agri-world concept and how like one planet is responsible for feeding an entire sector. Sometimes those agri-worlds, like if it's a specific resource that another sector doesn't have, they need to travel through the warp in order to get that. Without the Emperor, you can't travel, so you basically just cut off that resource, and that resource might be really important. So it basically just the entire Imperium and the is going to break up into different little kingdoms if the Astronomicon goes away. But yeah, I think it would survive though. Just thinking about it right now, because the Cicatrice Maledictum split the Imperium in two, and you have the Blood Angels and Sanguinius, or not Sanguinius, what's his name? The Blood Angels dude. Mephiston? No. Mephiston is the Psyker. I can't remember his name. But you have the Blood Angels chapter master leading there, and then you have Gilliman leading the other one. So I think that's what would happen if the Astronomicon goes away. All of these little kingdoms are ruled over by either some type of Inquisitor, some type of planetary governor, High Lord, or Space Marine chapter master. I'm still trying to remember the dude's name. Why can't I remember his name? But yeah. Next question comes from Isaac Langdon. What is the Emperor's first, middle, and last name? I don't think it ever says in the book. They call him the New Man. That is his tag that the shamans gave him. After that, if he gave himself his name, Prince. That's my guess. Next question comes from Erza Swan. Is there an orc war boss, weird boy, or psychic war boss? Yeah. So in the book, you could actually play. I think this happened in 5th edition, but you can play as Weird Boy Zogratz, I think it is. He's the one with the 2 snakes. His story is really funny because he was born on a planet where snakes were really, really venomous. And as a kid, he battled these snakes, and he would force them to bite him. And he has grown an immunity to most poisons. And he's also a weird boy, so he has psychic powers and stuff. And he is considered a war boss because he has a retinue that follows him around. He's crazy, because all weird boys are. I wonder if he's a warp head, though. He's probably a warp head. But they're all crazy, but yes, he is an HQ. He was an HQ. He is a leader. So yes, you can have that. You can create it. And I know weird boys are considered HQs, like just normal weird boys are considered HQs. And right now, if you play the tabletop, there's this tactic that I used to use, where you have a weird boy, you have the jump, and then you have a secondary weird boy. He could be like your lieutenant in your homebrew lore. And then you have both of them do the jump, and then they jump a squad of 60 boys in front of your enemy. It was a lot of fun. Good question, though. Next question comes from Hippie Hurdler. When will we see the fur babies? I've shown them before. You could follow us on Instagram. The Instagram tag is just One Mind Syndicate. I can post them there. It's 2 border collies. They're annoying. Next question comes from Trogdor420. How gangsta is 40K? Is having a pile of shame like having a stable full of gardening tools? So to answer how gangster 40K is, it actually is surprisingly pretty gangster, just because, like, growing up, I remember the miniatures were really expensive. So as a kid, the first thing that comes to your mind, or maybe just because I'm a bad person, but like the first thing that came to my mind is like, it would be really easy to walk into a GW store and just steal. I never did it, but like, it is one of those situations, especially because back in the day, GW stores were in shopping malls. So like, there was no door. You could easily just go in there, and there's usually only like one guy taking care of the entire store. This is back before, like, even before COVID, like a long, long time ago. You had a bunch of kids annoying him, asking him questions about painting, about the game, and everybody was into their game. You could just easily walk in there, grab something, and leave. So yeah, it kind of like set it up so that you could be gangsta, and then later on you could just resell it, right? But that would be bad, and people shouldn't do that. I don't think they can do that anymore, but yeah. And then, is having a pile of shame like having a stable full of gardening tools? I don't know what that means. Do you mean like instead of having horses at your stable, you have gardening tools? So you're lame? I don't think having a pile of shame is lame. And I'm not saying that because I have a pile of shame. I'm just saying that because I want to say that. This next question comes from... we will do Shinku Kirito Ichika. How will things be like if the Emperor's children didn't turn traitor? What if Fulgrim didn't pick the Lair Blade, fought alongside Ferris, and be at the Siege of Terra? Would they also be Codex compliant? So if the Emperor's children didn't actually turn traitor, I think the Emperor wouldn't have gotten hurt, just because Fulgrim and his lads, or the Emperor's children, were really crucial in Horus's plan. They were a really strong force. So during the Siege of Terra, I think if they would have been able to make it to Terra and support them there. I don't know if he would have been betrayed during the Dropsite Massacre, though. I think if Ferris Manus and Fulgrim were fighting back-to-back against the traitors, so like, who was it? It was it Mortarion, Horus, and the other guy, what's his name? The Iron Lord guy. But I think Fulgrim and Ferris Manus together fighting against those traitors would have been enough to, like, for them not to have lost. And obviously Ferris Manus wouldn't have died. The Iron Hands wouldn't have suffered so many losses, and more Iron Hands within the Loyalists would have been good, especially against the forces of the Adeptus Mechanicus. So you might even have the Adeptus Mechanicus not even siding with Horus, because you have like such a heavy influence from the Iron Hands saying, like, don't do this, instead of just them dying during the Dropsite Massacre, which is what happened. But yeah, that is a what-if scenario that it would be fun to explore in a video soon. Seymour Fields. If orcs can domesticate Tyranids and use them as pets, even saddle them up to ride them into battle, what happens if they fight Tyranids riding Tyranids? Does the hive mind take over and control the mount? If it would be the same hive mind, yes. If it's not, no. Because, like, you got to remember that. That's why Tyranid hive fleets fight other Tyranid hive fleets. There's no connection between the hive minds. They're separate. They're just like two predators fighting against two tigers, basically fighting against each other, or any other predator. But yeah, and then if it's like they stole them from Hive Fleet Kraken, and then they fight Hive Fleet Kraken, whatever Synapse creature is there will take control of that mount. Yeah. Next question comes from Pi. Could a warband formed by Chaos Space Marines from different factions? So, for example, could there be Thousand Sons, Night Lords, Alpha Legion, and then they could all turn traitor? Yeah, you could have a Chaos Space Marine warbands of different factions. That's kind of what Abaddon's Crusade was, the 13th Black Crusade. It was just a bunch of different warbands fighting alongside each other on Cadia, and then blowing up the planet. Next question comes from Jose Games. In your opinion, which army list do you think will win the Las Vegas Open? I'm pulling for the Tabletop Titans, Adrian's Harlequins. I don't know. I'm not into like that world of competitiveness within 40K. 40K has always just been a game of fun. I want to win, obviously, but at the end of the day, I'm not trying to build a list. I don't like that vibe of like, because growing up, I remember Magic the Gathering and Hero Clicks and how you would go to a tournament and you would see the same models. So it's like everybody has that card, everybody has that Hero Click, and then it just becomes like a boring thing where every single battle, there's slight deviance, there's a slight change in the actual roster, but at the end of the day, it's just like the same lists, and I didn't like that. So who knows? I'm not sure. Next question comes from Andrew Conroy. Why do killed demon Primarchs have to wait 1 or 10,000 years to return, or 1,000 years to return? Because I think that's what Angron had to wait. It's just a rule, like a demonology rule. I think it comes from like the actual mythology of demons. It's written somewhere throughout like the lore of that. I don't know what it would be called, but like the mystic stuff. So I think it's just like a literary thing that carried over, which is cool. I don't think there's a specific thing that happens though. This next question comes from Michael Cupina. Do heretics still believe in the Omnissiah, or do they worship individual chaos gods? They still worship the Omnissiah. They just worship them differently. The cool thing about the Omnissiah is it's very moldable. Like, there are some people within the Adeptus Mechanicus who believe the Emperor is the Omnissiah, or at least they should believe that the Emperor is the Omnissiah. So, like, you can just have that same concept of, like, having the Omnissiah be the Emperor, and then just switch him over to be like, oh no, he's actually Tzeentch. But no, for the most part, it is the Omnissiah that they're worshiping. He's just the machine god. Next question comes from Heron Royer. Do the Necron's soul have a presence in the warp, before they sold their soul to the C'tans? And if so, Necron tier. So did the Necron tier soul have a presence in the warp? And if so, were they also responsible for helping Chaos create Chaos Gods minus Slanesh? Yes, they had a presence in the warp, like the Tau have a presence in the warp. It's very, very small. That doesn't mean that they don't feed into the warp, but at the end of the day, it is the psychically powerful old ones whose manipulation of the warp created like Khorne and Nurgle and all that kind of stuff. So Necrons did not have psychic powers. Just like the Tau. They were essentially Tau. And those were the questions for today. If you guys have more questions for us, please comment down below. Thank you guys so much for listening, and I will talk to you guys tomorrow. This is Gershwin with One Mind Syndicate signing out.